Welcome once again, all you Warhammers and Warhammies, to the best episode of Big M's Power Hour to date. I'm your host, Big M, all by myself, because Cole hates me. No, he's busy with real world things, and I always tell him this is, we're all community here, and this channel is for fun. So don't get rid of personal stuff for us. Well, we just entered the new year, so we have everyone, talk about yearly wrap up and everything. I, however, want to do kind of the other side of it, where I do a little bit of a prediction for the future. So as far as that goes, I think so. We know 4th edition's coming out, probably the weekend of the 4th of July. We're probably going to get the preview at Adepticon. And I think it's going to be Stormcast and Skaven. I think Stormcast are going to get... I think we're going to get a lot of new units, but I don't think it's... Well, no. I think we're going to get a lot of new models, not a lot of new units. I think we're going to get a lot of refresh from some of the first models we got. Because honestly, some of the Forge World models, some of the last fantasy models we got, I think look better than the first Stormcast models do, especially whenever you put them next to the Thunder Strike armor. So I'm expecting, and again, just like we had with the reveal from Realms of Ruin, how they talked about the Liberators having the Thunder Strike armor in there. I think that is a precursor to what we're getting, and they basically just had to say, like, oh, look at the cool thing they came up with about 5 months before we're ready to show it off. And they didn't want to release it as DLC because they knew they would get flayed alive. And then, of course, like I said, Skaven. I have a feeling we're going to get fresh, or like a re-release of, I think, maybe Clan Eshin, because I don't think we've seen too many of those. I think they've kind of been reliquated, pretty much. So that's my prediction for launch. As far as what 4th edition is going to be, I don't know. I know everyone really is excited for where Age of Sigmar is right now. However, personally, I feel like I feel like I'm alone on this one, which is fine. I mean, it's good, I guess, that I'm alone on this one. Is that I personally don't trust the rules writing team right now. They seem to be in a little bit of a... they seem to not future-proof their rule sets. It seems like they're struggling with that a little bit. Now, with that being said, I still don't think... I think you basically, whenever Stormcast comes out, you're going to have about 8 to 12 months of them being enjoyable, and maybe 3 months of them being competitive, unless, of course, there's something broken like dragons. There's with how big the book is, I do think that there's going to be some broken combo that it's going to take them a while to get in line. But besides that, like, if you try and run something else, anything else, where you're like, oh, I really want to run a Vanguard army, I don't think that's going to work. Same thing, like if you want to run Sacrosanct, I think it's, assuming that's not the broke thing, I think you're going to struggle to win with it. So we'll see, because again, if they go back to do Warrior Chamber over again, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. With Skaven, I still don't think... with it being... They really struggle with Horde armies, so Horde armies either flounder hard, like the Skaven did, up until they discovered the build with the big... I forget what it is. I forget if it's the bell or the... I think it's the bell. You put the bell up front, and you kind of get away with some shenanigans with that. With 3 bells, I think up front, it doesn't matter. I don't play it, so I have a feeling that we're still going to get. I have a feeling that Grand Strats and the battle strategies, battle tactics, I have a feeling they're not going away. Personally, I would like to see them both go away. I would like to see the battle tactics integrated into the battle plans. So it's like your first is, if you have one objective, you get one, two more, and then something else like score an extra battle point for every enemy unit you peel off of an objective, or something like that, or you score an extra. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But anything like that, I'd rather see it integrated into the battle plan itself, because then it's a little bit easier to balance, because you're already in a place where you're working towards one objective. So kind of adding a second in, or even if they have the secondary in kind of a place where you have to choose, something that makes it so I don't necessarily do I go for the objective, or do I go for the secondary, or I can't get the objective, so I might as well go for the secondary. I think that would be an interesting area to explore. I don't think they're going to, but it'd be nice. So as far as that goes, the other predictions, like the actual predictions, because all that stuff's pretty kind of, it's so strong rumor that it's basically confirmed almost. I think by the end of the year, I think by January, I think we can only expect to see maybe 2 additional battle tomes. I wouldn't be surprised if they were Fire Slayers and Orcs, just because they'll probably want to try again with Cruel Boys. I have a feeling Cruel Boys will be pretty good the second time around. I do think we're still going to keep Bone Splitters. I don't think we're getting rid of them. I think we'll still keep the Big Wah. I think they're still going to miss it with Iron Jaws. I think the Iron Jaws will be good at first, but they'll fall off like Stormcast will. Fire Slayers, I have no idea. It's always a crapshoot. I would like to think that we're going to get a unit that'll make the army a little bit more flavorful and enjoyable, but I doubt it. They seem to come up with some interesting ideas in a bland way. The army does well, but again, it's in a very uninteresting way, and I think that's one of the reasons why, outside of the aesthetics, one of the reasons why people don't play it, because I just take the same unit over and over again, and I play one trick, and then I use that trick to win, and if it doesn't work, then I don't win. Like I said, I don't think we're going to get too many battle tomes right away. I think 2025 will be the year of battle tomes, where we'll be basically getting 2 battle tomes a quarter, if not more. I'd like to say that we would be getting 6 total this year, but it's just not going to happen. I can't imagine that they'd be releasing, based on how they do their release schedules, because we'll have the summer July release that'll have the Stormcast and Skaven, and then in the fall, October-ish, we'll have the 2 other books, and that'll be it. Then in January we'll have some more. Then spring, summer, fall. That seems to be the way that their cycles go. As far as that goes, we'll see about Old World. We got some Old World talk we got going on here. I think we will. I wouldn't be surprised if spring's a little close. Somewhere probably maybe around June, we might see. Again, Orcs and the Dwarven Hold for Greenskins, and Dwarven Mountain holds for Old World around that time period. And it sounds like the rumors are kind of basically continuing the same trend of Old World's basically you're going to get a hero and then you're going to get a unit. And that's basically what you can expect. Outside of, here's your old models back. we'll see Old World. I got some thoughts on Old World. We'll touch on here in a minute. So let's kind of go through the news here. Not too much. So back at the end of November, since we recorded a little bit earlier, we had what is his name? Nicholas. Nicholas won with a Techless Run Lumineth list. He so AOS Coach did an interview with him, a very in-depth video, which is top-notch. He picked Nicholas's brain, two pieces. If you want to know essentially what it takes to win something like this, that's the episode to watch. Fantastic episode. Nicholas laid it all out there. He was talking about how he just played so many games. I couldn't imagine playing the amount of games that he played and then still wanting to play Age of Sigmar after that. If I played that much in 2-3 days, I would probably move on to something else. But they actually put his list in here. So as you can see, it's not too far off what you would see, maybe more Dawn Riders. So we got 3 units of Dawn Riders in there. So I mean, that's a little bit more than you'd expect. Normally, we see a lot of Kangaroo Riders and whatnot. But like I said, I mean, I've always thought that Lumineth has a path to victory, but it's just not as apparent as we kind of want it to be. I agree with a lot of the calls for kind of the army to be reworked. At this point, it's so tricky. By tricky, I mean it relies so heavily on tricks in order to succeed that A, it's just mentally draining, and then B, your opponent is just ready to be done by the end of the battle, win, lose, or draw. It's just like, I'm done. Can we please move on? Now, one thing that's interesting in here, there's no Wardens or Sentinels in this list. So that to me is a little bit of a surprise. But again, that's why he wins and I don't. And then, of course, second place, we had a Skaven player, and which I think surprised a lot of people. But again, I have not played. It's the Screaming Bell. Screaming Bell, that's 3 of those to start summoning extra stuff in. I knew that people were going to find a trick somewhere. Like I just had to, because with that many war scrolls and a horde unit and a horde army, and again, not that he didn't really run too much horde. I mean, we got 40 clan rats and 30 plague sensor bearers. That's not an incredible amount of models for Skaven. So good on him too. So that was pretty exciting, and hopefully again we can do it again next year, and we continue to see some interesting lists put out, and we see a nice spread of the armies across the table. Moving along here, Warhammer Heroes is back. Not too much to say here. Our very own Chuck, of course, is a Warhammer hero of the likes that none can compare. Let's see, is he? We got him on the list? No, he's not on the list. Sorry, Chuck, you didn't make the website. You made the. Oh, that's just the 2020 people. Bah. Anyways, if you know someone that goes above and beyond, someone that helps your group, helps your friendly local games store, someone that, like I said, just someone that goes above and beyond to make things easy, makes things more fun, helps grow your local scene, give them a nomination. Worst case scenario, they don't get it. That's fine. But it's fun to see it back. Let's see next year who we gotta get going. So moving along, we got our who's, our little sneak peek that we'll probably see here. Let's see if I can just turn the volume off here. All right, so this, I mean, we clearly have some sort of elf. All right, Night Haunt. So we're getting a new Night Haunt foot hero. That's what they needed. Let's see if we get a better sight of that elf. Okay, well, we know where we were. We know what we got. They're very proud of their Troll King, as they should be. And, of course, Ionis. Very fun. It's the whole Civ Sigmar range. Yep. Come on. There we go. Nope, we're still going. Sorry, guys. There we go. So we have... Alright, so this is probably the main one that I'm most interested in. This is clearly an elf model. We don't have anything with this silhouette because it's clothed, so it's not Daughters of Cain. There's no capes or armor, so it's not necessarily Lumineth. Could it be Morathi? Or not Morathi? Could it be Umbreneth? I'll say yes. Umbreneth, this year, coming out. Get ready for it. There's some sort of thing. So probably, I think this is probably going to be the Chaos Marauder kit that I can't believe we still have. And then, of course, there's maybe a Stormcast guy. I don't know. And then, of course, we saw a Civ Sigmar guy in there. So that'll be exciting whenever those get revealed. I think those typically get revealed pretty quickly. But we'll see. Then we had the Miniature of the Year, where we had a bunch of the best or the honorable mentions, and then of course Farsight doesn't belong in the top 3. Angron absolutely belongs in the top 3, and Lionel Johnson. I love the sculpt. I don't know if it belongs in the top 3 with the simple fact that you have this. And you have Ionis. Like, there's some truly spectacular models. I think this is more hype than actual, deserves to be number 1. I think what we need to do is we need to come together as an AOS community, and we just need to agree on one model to vote on. Not because we need to all agree that there's one model that's the best, just so we have a chance of getting third. Like, I think if everyone that played Age of Sigmar just voted for, the next model that comes out, regardless of what it looks like, we just vote for it, we'll get it up there. I think we could get it up pretty high. Let's see. Oh, we got our new store models. So, I don't remember... I don't know. I can't remember if I said this was Tau or not, or Necron or something, or I probably said it was Seraphon. Who knows? This upsets me greatly, that this little hand holding the pot was a rumor engine, and I thought that was a skink. I thought that was a skink hand, little dinky thing. Nope, stupid ethereal from friggin' Tau. And then again, we also have a new Fire Slayer. I personally love it. It's awesome. We need a new sculpt for Rune Smiters because the T-pose is a little ridiculous. The simple fact that we still haven't gotten something outside of that. But the only thing I'm not a huge fan of is these little horns right here. But again, at the end of the day, that's not that bad. I think him holding up the keys cool. The big beard's cool. He has a mustache, so he doesn't have the shaved mustache like a lot of the other heroes, like the Rune Master. And then again, we're getting other things. There's a Terminator combat gauge, a crappy dice tray, some pins, and a crappy backpack. So, yeah, keep an eye out if you have a local store. You can get... Oh, he has a triple mohawk. Oh, never mind. He's even better now. Guys didn't even tell me he had a triple mohawk. So there you go. So this one I thought was funny. I'm not going to bring up every single Old World article because I don't need to. I have enough to say about it just through one. This one I thought was interesting. So unit fillers were kind of a little bit of a... Well, if they were now, they'd be an issue. Like, people would gripe about them. Basically, you'd have these gigantic blocks of characters, and people didn't want to buy the models or couldn't afford the models or find the models. So they would put little things in the middle so you didn't have to. So like this would here, this one, well, I think this one actually says here, this takes up 6 miniatures. So it's like a little 3x3 in the middle of your square. So there's 6 less guys you have to paint. I don't know if you're going this far to make something this cool looking, just paint 6 extra guys. Like I don't personally, I wouldn't call out my opponent for having fillers, but you're not getting favorite opponent unless you bring me something. Like if you give me stuff, then yeah. But no, this is, yeah, like I said, I think it looks cool. I don't like the idea of gap fillers. Now, like this, that's kind of cool because it's almost like, look, that's where the energy for the undead or whatever is coming. However, at the same time, imagining that that's kind of the one issue I have with gap fillers. So like this and this, I kind of have a little bit of a hard time imagining it, like, maybe not this because it was wheels, but moving with the unit seems a little weird. I mean, I guess if you put it long ways, but I think that defeats the purpose. I think it's supposed to go widthwise. Yeah, I just think it's interesting because like they are always so like get all the models, do everything, no shortcuts, no corner cuts, and here they are. Cut those corners, cut them down. Now I will say, in middle of going back to 8th edition for Orcs and Goblins or Greenskins, I forget which one the book was called, they did acknowledge that you need so many orcs in those blocks that they were like, just don't worry about the detail after like the first 2 rows and just do a little less detail every row, back you go. And then moving along, we just have our last article regarding the old world, which of course, if you were watching this the day it comes out, pre-order, like be ready for those pre-orders because there's already talk of very low stock. So get ready. So it's interesting. I started, well, I guess I'll go over here. So my hype for the game at the beginning was up here, and like I felt like everyone else in the group was down here-ish. Chuck maybe a little more in the middle, but the more I learn about the game, the more it like the closer we get to release, I'm just like, they keep ruining it, and everyone else is like, ooh, we're getting closer. And so, but let me explain why, because it's not just me being me. Well, I mean, of course it's me being me, but I actually have stuff to back it up. So whenever it comes to the legacy factions, I knew, like, immediately whenever they announced it and they talked about what factions were going to get focused on, and what wasn't, and they basically said, like, look, we can't support the entire line, there's too many armies. I felt that was totally reasonable, and and so it was basically, these are the armies we want to focus on. These armies will be getting an army book. These armies will be getting new models, new units, and then the legacy factions will release the PDF, and they just won't see new models, and they won't get an army book. I thought that was going to be the case, and I thought that was fine. A lot of these armies don't necessarily need new models or anything like that. Lizardmen you can pull from the new Seraphon line, depending on their new base sizes. And same thing with vampire counts, and we'll have Skaven, and ogres are the same models. Same thing with demons. But now they're basically saying, like, look, these are not going to be supported. If you have the army, you and your buddies can play, but don't come to one of our tournaments with them because you're not allowed in with them. And I think that is a huge mistake. Now, I've already seen multiple chats going like, well, who cares what Games Workshop allows at their tournaments? We'll allow it at our tournaments. And that's a great sentiment. I like to hear it. However, here's the problem I have with that. With these legacy factions that aren't getting supports, aren't getting books, aren't getting models, aren't allowed in tournaments, that essentially is them saying, we're not really going to try with we're not really going to try with this army, with these armies. So whatever rules we write, that's what you're stuck with. So if they are super underpowered, which based on how legends work is probably going to be the route they're going to go, they're probably going to be a little bit underpowered to dissuade people from using them, or they're going to be, something's going to be jank and just broke, and it's going to be completely unusable. Like Chaos Dwarf Molten Cannon will come down and do just insane amount of mortal wounds whenever you roll a 4 or whatever. And so then it gets to the point where tournaments outside of GW will allow these guys in, and so then you're going to see at a 30-man tournament 25 Chaos Dwarf players taking the same jank-ass list, to the point where the outsiders are going to have to either just go no legacy or no whatever army is causing the problems. So that's kind of where I think it's going to be. Now, I would like to think that essentially what's going to happen is we're kind of like going to be in a chapter. You know, like here's the story we want to tell, and these are the armies we want to focus on. So whenever we get done and close that chapter, we go to a new chapter where we shuffle things up. So like High Elves might go out, Dark Elves might come in, Dwarves might go out, Chaos Dwarves come in, Orcs might go out, Lizard Men come in. But who knows? I mean, honestly, one of the big things that I'm concerned the most about with Old World is the support that it's going to get, or the how much it's going to be supported from us, because it literally is going to be. I mean, these prices are, as I expected, pretty high. Now, some of them are reasonable. Like, basically, the old kits are actually a couple dollars less than when they were taken off the shelves. But that's still at the same point. I don't know if I want to spend $45 on a box of skeletons that look the way they do. You know. Especially whenever I can go to any sort of any STL site, and you can find Egyptian skeletons that look amazing, and you can have a nearly unlimited amount for $12.99 and a couple bottles of resin. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know why you would buy those models when you could do the STLs outside of, I want to go to an official GW tournament. Which, based on where they keep putting them, the entire Northeast won't be going to them. So up here, we can do our own mega 3D print off here, and we'll just make up all of our own armies all the time, and GW will be like, what? No one goes to Mordor, so what's going on behind those gates? But like I said, I mean, I think the biggest disappointment is, I remember before playing any Warhammer anything, these are some of the armies that, like, I saw from the outside and was like, I want to play that game. I mean, Lizardmen, Skaven, Ogres, Vampire Counts, Demons. How are we going to have a Warhammer game without demons? That doesn't even begin to make sense. Like, these are classic and iconic. The least you could do is just support them. Like, write a half-decent book, release the rules, let them come to your tournament, and if there's some jank, fix it. It's not that hard. Like, then what you do is every 6 months you pick 2 of these factions, you put a made to order thing up, and then you move on. Like, you just print money. Like, especially with made to order. Like, if you're doing made to order, you're literally putting nothing on the line. Every click is profit because you're making it to order. You're not randomly printing a certain amount and then you're stuck with it. I don't understand. It's one thing I'm missing. I don't. I think it's a poor decision on their side, and I hope it doesn't. I mean, I think it might be a little dramatic to say it might tank the game, but I don't think it's going to go that far. Now, the other thing that I'm also worried about is some of the decisions they've made with the rules. Specifically, there's two main rules that are kind of like worrisome to me. The entire front row fighting, as long as you are touching something, sounds really dumb. I'd like to. I'll keep the opinion in reserve for next month, assuming that there's going to be some sort of way to rein that in. I think we've talked about this last episode, but it's like they need to have something to prevent me from just going with, a 50 row, like a 50 man wide 1 row unit of hammerers that just move forward and want to touch anything, so then they can just take a shot, lose some guys, annihilate. I mean, same thing with like sword masters. I don't want to see the 50 man line of sword masters. That's not. No, thank you. I don't want that. Again, like, I think not being able to attack from the second rank is ridiculous. I have no issue with there being the diminishing return, where it's first row attacks at full strength, second row everyone gets 1 weapon in, and then if you have spears, the third row. I have no problem with that. I think that is the best way, because then you encourage you to have a little bit of depth and a little bit of rows, because I don't think the combat calculation at the end, where you go, okay, who has more rows, you have more rows, you get an extra point, or you get a number of points equal to the amount of more rows you have. Who cares if I've just wiped the living tar out of your unit and it's wiped off the map because I just was able to roll with 50 dwarfs, even though 40 of them were out of base contact. And then on top of that, the other issue is, so like one of the issues I think is going on with Age of Sigmar right now is the damage threshold is too high. I think that is a little bit of an issue that's been kind of spiraling out of control over the past couple GHBs, and with the things like Blizzard right now are not helping things. And so what we're doing right now with Old World is we're saying just get the highest damage humanly possible. Don't worry about defense, offense. All you're going to do is look to see what can do the most DPR, and then you just go put as many into a single unit as you can, go as wide as you can, as narrow as you can. Because the other thing I just heard about, which they kind of go over now I haven't watched it yet, so this is technically hearsay, so throw that out there. So I was reading about Mini Wargaming's Old World Bat Rep. Near the end, they talk about how you don't step up. So if I have a block 5 wide, and you do 7 damage to me, I take 5 guys from the front, and then I take 2 more from the next row. And then whenever it comes to be my turn, I don't get to swing back because there's no one in base to base contact if I don't have a spear. That is, I can't imagine, like, I have to assume that they're playing these games behind behind the doors, and they're having a good time. That has to happen, I assume, but like, I can't visualize the game where I get charged in by this Death Star unit that's 50 wide, sword masters, and they come into my iron breakers and they do 20 damage. So now I have lost 2 rows. I've lost 4 rows of iron breakers, and I don't even get to swing back because they did that much damage. I don't understand how that's fun. I don't understand how that's going to make for a good game. Again, I'm trying to keep an open mind. This one's a little hard for me to do. It just seems like a terrible idea. But again, I haven't played this yet, so I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe yes. Maybe no. I don't know. Again, we'll cover Old World. We'll cover Old World next month. We'll see how it goes. We'll keep. I'm holding my breath. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. Now, I don't want to go over this too long because it would be boring as all hell. And a lot of the stuff has been revealed. So, essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to look at everything here real quick. It seems like... So we had Dark Angels, Dark Angels, Dark Angels, Dark Angels. Clearly everything else is essentially going to be some form of basically everything else is Skaven. This is probably the sword for your Liberator in Thunder Strike armor, but Skaven. I mean, it's going to be all of the new Skaven stuff. This, I don't know. It'd be kind of cool if there was like a, I don't know. I think this is what I'm the most looking forward to. I want to see what this is. Oh, you're going to do that to me. Okay. So yeah, so I said, I think overall, I would have liked to have seen a little more variety, as opposed to just like, hey, here's like 3 or 4 of our big releases, and then moving on. But we'll see. Be a fun year. Okay, so let's move along here. Here we go. So, this is the what we're going to be talking about here for the rest of the episode here. So, the history of the Chaos Dwarfs. So, I've been playing a lot of Total War with the Chaos Dwarfs that are probably a little more complicated than they need to be. I wouldn't mind if they got rid of a mechanic or maybe just watered some down a little bit so I could sit down and casually play, as opposed to needing paper and pencil and an abacus every time I want to do a Chaos Dwarf campaign. So, essentially, where we go with these guys. So, Chaos Dwarves, they are known as the Legion of Asgore in Age of Sigmar. The Dowie Tsar is their, essentially their in-game, in-universe name, just like the Dwarves of the Dowie. These are the Dowie Tsar. And, of course, we also have the name of the Oathbreakers, which is the rumor name that is going around for them. Now, a lot of the question is like, why are they, what's the draw of Chaos Dwarfs? Whenever I first heard about them, I really wasn't that interested in them. I was first getting into the hobby, where it was like, if there was something released, we had to have a Chaos version of it. Oh, we have Space Marines, well, we better corrupt the Space Marines and make Chaos Space Marines. Oh, we have Titans, we better corrupt those and make Chaos Titans. It's like, okay, we don't need to corrupt everything. But then whenever you start digging into the lore of the Chaos Dwarfs, that's kind of where it it comes alive a little bit, you know. So essentially, it's kind of like, what would the dwarfs be like if you take their morale stat, not morale, moral, if you take their moral stat, drop it to 0, and give them nuclear engines. Um, because essentially what they do is they will make these contraptions and these machines, and they will bind demons to them to fuel them. Uh, and then, of course, in game, they represent that with a lot of things like if you roll X, whether max or min, you know, the demon basically breaks out and you just start taking mortal wounds out the wazoo. Additionally, on top of that, their numbers are very, very low in the old world. So they take, they force recruit basically anything they can get their hands on. Goblins, orcs, hobgoblins, trolls, ogres, it doesn't matter. And so that's kind of what fills out their ranks whenever they're kind of just the overlords of things that get to make fun things, like a demon-powered train that can pull all of your artillery, which we'll get to in a little bit. But in fantasy, the problem with them there was all of that stuff was so expensive points-wise, well, and money-wise, since it was Forge World, that even if you ever saw a dwarf army, they typically didn't take them because they were so inefficient points-wise, you know, points to damage or utility. But I lost my train of thought. But anyways, so like they had all these really cool options. Like they had the glaive that is basically an axe on the end of a gun. Again, points too high, so you couldn't take the cool stuff like that. So whenever we get to the Age of Sigmar stuff, I kind of hope that, if anything, we do get to the point where things are a little more usable. But anyways, so let's go all the way back to where dwarves started. And I apologize, this might be a little hard to read, but I don't care. I like the art, and I was going to keep the font style, so sorry. So again, originally, we did not have an army book for them. They got, in 4th edition, a special white dwarf. It's funny how things just don't change. Now, what's very interesting is, when this came out, one of the complaints about this army was that it wasn't fleshed out enough. And as you can see here, there's a decent amount of units. I mean, we have 3 named characters, and then we have the Battle Standard Bearer and Sorcerers. And then, of course, you have your battle line of the Warriors and the Blunderbuss. Then you have, your cavalry units of the Bull Centaurs, and then of course you have all of like your non-voluntary recruits of all your hobgoblins. So you have your hobgoblin warriors, so you can get in your pits, and you have your tar pits. You can get the sneaky gits, so you have your vanguard deployment. Archers, so you have a little bit mass range. Wolf riders, so you have something a little quicker. Black orcs, and goblins to fill in the normal things. And then hobgoblin bolt thrower, which was essentially your discount garbage bolt thrower. But you probably, if you were going to be taking artillery here, you're probably going to go with either the death rockets or the Earthshaker cannons. It's hard to tell, but so anyways, like, this was, again, 4th edition, and I don't think they didn't get another book, or they didn't get any other additional support until 8th edition. So we literally we got halfway through fantasy, we get some Chaos Dwarf something. And then at the end, we finally get the closest thing to an army book that they would get in fantasy. It was this really weird Forge World book called Tamurkhan, The Throne of Chaos. So this was a Forge World book that provided a lot of chaos lore. There was a lot of maps based on the area that the book was talking about. They had rules if you wanted to do a campaign, and then they had rules for a lot of the other Forge World models that you might be familiar with if you only played AOS. So things like the Bile Troll, the Plague Toads, things like that. Now here you can see the list is almost fully put out here. I mean, well, this is the list, honestly. But as an army, it's pretty fleshed out at this point. So now you only have one named person, Drazoeth the Ashen. But now you have your Sorcerer Prophets, Demon Smith Sorcerers, your BSB, the Infernal Castellan, Hobgoblin Khan. You have a Bull Centaur hero, and then kind of what you'd expect if you're familiar with fantasy at all. One of the things they always do is they'll try and condense a unit into one core unit and go, here's your different weapons you can choose. So you just had your Chaos Dwarf Infernal Guard, and they had hand weapon and shield, or a great weapon, or a Fireglaive, or a blunderbuss. Now again, like I said, the Fireglaive was a really cool weapon, and it was actually pretty good if it was cheaper. The shooting wasn't terrible, and the melee wasn't terrible. The problem was you basically paid for a great weapon and a blunderbuss almost combined. Not that expensive, but very close. Again, the Hobgoblins were there basically for the Hobgoblin Cutthroats were there for your chaff. The Chaos Dwarf Infernal Ironsworn, these were your kind of your elite versions of the Infernal Guard. And then you had your Centaur Renders, who were cavalry, and they were an interesting version of cavalry because they were really tough. They're really tough. They hit hard, and went down hard, but their points were also very high. The Kadai Fireborn, I wasn't able to find a picture of them online, but if you played the game at all, if you played Total War, you'll know what they are. Again, another unit that was really interesting, but just too expensive. Now, as far as their... Oh, and then, of course, you had your Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, which were actually kind of your... People really... You took a lot of these. And one of the options you had for the Hobgoblin Cutthroats was to give them bows. So it was basically like you would take a small amount of Infernal Guard and then a large amount of Wolf Raiders and Cutthroats with bows. That was kind of your list. You really didn't have too much more than that. But then you had... This is where you kind of got into some of the more interesting artillery. So you had your magma cannon. So normally a dwarf cannon, you pick a point on the map, and then you roll your artillery dice, which has all the even numbers from 2 to 10, and then it also has a direction. Or no, I'm sorry. Yes, you still roll it, but you don't worry about the direction. You just worry about if it shows the hit or not, or the exclamation point, or the misfire. And so you would roll that to see how far it bounces, and then so basically from where it goes to where it lands, it hits everything in the middle. For the magma cannon, you do that, but then you roll to see how far it moves, and then you actually put out the old school teardrop template to determine how much you hit, because you basically launch a cannonball full of magma that breaks open and just throws magma. Awesome. I can't remember the rocket launcher too much. It was just a good artillery piece. It didn't do too much special things, if I remember right. The Iron Demon War Engine is actually the train. That's the front of the train. Um, and you could attach these other, because like everything else has like a 3-inch move, whereas the War Engine could move, I think it was like 8. I don't remember exactly how much it was in fantasy. So you could basically move the other things. Again, the other issue is all of their artillery is very expensive, so you could basically only afford one piece. And so the Iron Demon kind of stayed home unless you were doing a narrative event. The Dreadquake Mortar was probably... I go back and forth between the Magma Cannon and the Dreadquake Mortar being my favorites, because I think I like the idea of the Magma Cannon more than the Dreadquake Mortar, but the rules for the Dreadquake Mortar are better. Whatever unit you hit, they have to make a morale test, and it affects how much they can move. It's really cool. And then, of course, the Hell Cannon. I'm pretty sure it's the same as the Hell Cannon that the Chaos Forces had, and it's just really good. And then again, the Kadai Destroyer is just a more elite version of the Fireborn. Now, eventually, the Chaos Dwarfs came over to Age of Sigmar, and they were renamed the Legions of Asgore. This was a... So if the last book was the closest thing they got to an army book, this is the closest thing they ever got to a standalone rule set, because it was a free PDF from Forge World. This only had rules for the Chaos Dwarfs. There was no one else or anything like that. Now, this was legal in 1st and 2nd edition and was moved to Legends, sadly, in August of 2021. Another victim of COVID. Now, there's no way to play them currently in-game outside of Legends, so basically you can't go to any tournaments anywhere and bring them. You can still kind of use it, but we didn't get an update for 3rd edition, so you're really going to be out there. As you can see, the War Scrolls that we had really are a little lackluster, but there's enough to be able to get things going. Like, there's they really kind of did away with the involuntary recruits, which honestly I would be fine if they wanted to go that route. If bringing them back in like 4th or 5th edition, if they wanted to just focus on just Dwarden, I would be happy with that. And then like add in, the Kadai, that's cool. And yes, I do count the Bull Centaurs as Dwarden. I'm pretty sure they even had the keyword. So with that being said, though, let's jump over and actually look at some of the rules. Okay, so we're going to compare to kind of what these were. So here we had, again, it was such an interesting unit, I had to go with it here. So for the profiles in 8th edition, I couldn't go back. I couldn't find the one from 4th, and I don't know if I want to go back that far back anyway. So you had your Infernal Guard with Fireglaive. So you had a move of 3-inch, weapon skill of 4, ballistic score of 3, strength 4, tough 4, 1 wound, initiative 2, attacks 1, leadership 9. If you are unfamiliar with the old Warhammer Fantasy, or because it's even pretty close to some 40k stuff, your wisdom, your weapon skill, you would compare to your opponent. Most things like humans had like a weapon skill of 3, so having a 4 is pretty good. Having a ballistic skill of 3 is really good, since you have to roll your ballistic score or higher. So a 3-up base is pretty good. Now, if you have to shoot like through any sort of cover, or if you were more than halfway away from your range, you would take penalties, so that quickly gets up there to 5-up almost immediately. Again, the other stats, so the strength and toughness, if you successfully hit something, you have to compare your strength versus their toughness on a chart, and that determines what you have to roll. So for this, the higher the better, and the standard is about 3 for these, going off of a normal human. 4 is standard for the dwarf. Pretty good. Other than that, like I said, it's basically a similar profile to a regular dwarf. Now, as far as their special rules, you had Resolute, which was an army book rule, where all Chaos Dwarves flee and pursue 2d6 minus 1 rather than the usual 2d6. So basically, it just means you run less. I don't know why they call it Resolute. They should just call it Stumpy. It's not necessarily a good rule, because whenever you are trying to flee or pursue, you want to go faster, because if you get caught or catch, someone's going away. So if you get caught, the unit gets wiped. If you caught a unit, that unit got wiped. So -1, not the end of the world, but not good. It's not a bonus. Relentless. So normally in old fantasy, if a unit started running while it was in a certain distance, those units would start running as well. This prevented you, or I'm sorry, that's a different rule. I think I have that listed on the army book. Sorry. So this is you didn't need to worry. So march is like if you needed to like spin, because you could only pivot based on your movement, and so 3 inches is awful for that. You're literally talking about like that's what you could move. So Relentless makes it so you don't have to roll your leadership, which you normally have to do in order to like reposition yourself. Very necessary for the army. Now, unlike the regular dwarves, the Chaos Dwarves have to be within 8 inches of an enemy unit. The old school dwarves didn't have to be. There was no nothing. So they got Black Shard Armor, so 4-up save. Really good for fantasy. 5-up ward versus flaming attacks. Another really good choice. And then whenever you look at the profile, whenever you were shooting your fire glaive, it had an 18-inch range with a 4 strength and an armor piercing. Armor piercing is rend. Whenever you look at the fire glaive, obviously no range, just because that's how the weapons work back then. And then you got +1 to your strength, so now you're looking at a 5 strength. It requires 2 hands, which basically means you can't use a shield. Look, I even have that written. Now, if you look at them in Age of Sigmar, this is very much what you would expect in a first edition codex here. 4-inch move, because you're a dwarf, you're getting 4 inches. Doesn't matter. A 4-up save back then, amazing. 4-up. Do you remember whenever 3rd edition came out and they were like, guess what? All of Stormcast are going to have a 3-up battle or battle tome wide save, and everyone's like, oh, you're never going to move them. It's going to be impossible. Only 1 wound. Again, everything had less wounds back then, so that's normal. Bravery 6 seems a little low for Dwarden in general, but it is what it is. So the Pyrelock Fireglaive is the main profile for the missile weapon. 1 shot, 4/4, rend 1 damage. Terrible. Just the worst. And then the Bayonet Cleaver, range 1 inch, attacks 1, force 4s, no rend 1 damage. So, blah. For the champion, you could promote him to a Death Mask, which would be the name of that would be now. The model is armed with an ash steel hand weapon and a pistol instead of the fire glaive. So the pistol is basically the same as the fire glaive except for half distance, and the hand weapon for some reason is better. Just a hand weapon is better than the cleaver. It's whatever. So the standard bearer, you add 1 to bravery characteristics, as long as there's 1 in the unit. No big deal. Musician, add 1 to run rolls if you have a drummer. It's fine. Now here's where the Pyrelock weapons get good, where whenever you roll your hit, unmodified 6, deals a mortal wound, and then you also continue your attack, which since it's a 4-up, isn't going to hit. But you can also re-roll hit rolls of 1 if it hasn't made a move in the same turn. So if you didn't move, you got to line up your shot. So overall, for a battle line back then, it's pretty par for the course. Now, just terrible. Just embarrassing. Now, here's what I came up with it. So if you wanted to do a 10-man unit, I'll keep the 4 inches because, heaven forbid, 3-up save now with 2 wounds. And, also, real quick, this is done, I made all these in Rune Brush. So if you go to Google and type in War Scroll Builder, this is the first non-GW link. I use the site for everything. I apologize, I don't know who you are, but you are awesome, and you make everything great. Thank you. So this is if you wanted to go more of a little bit closer to a Horde army. So the Fireglaive is going to stay at 18 inches, 2 attacks instead of 1, 3s and 3s, rend 1, 1 damage. The melee is 2-inch reach, so you can attack from a second rank. Still 2 attacks, 3s, 3s, rend 1, 1 damage. The champion just gets +1 attack to both. Standard bearer. I wanted to use the old school Grumbler rules for Longbeards. So anytime a model runs or flees from this unit, you roll a die on a 5+, the model doesn't flee. The musician essentially makes it so anytime you run, anything less than a 3 counts as a 3, so you're always getting at least a 6-inch move whenever you run the 7-inch run, because nothing worse than trying to run and only moving 5 inches whenever a friggin' elf can move 6 without running. So we gotta at least beat them by 1. And then of course they're the weapon specialist. If an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with the Fireglaive Bayonet Cleaver is 6, the attack causes 1 mortal wound to any damage it inflicts. In addition, if the enemy unit ends its charge within half an inch of this unit, and there are no other enemies within 3 inches, roll a die for every model in that unit. On a 5+, the unit receives a mortal wound. So basically, they're just kind of getting a pot shot off without having to call Unleash Hell. So this is pretty close in my mind to what the War Scroll was. It's just kind of been updated for 4th edition or for 3rd edition, basically right now. I think it could be a good cornerstone to the army. I think it would be a good basis for buffs, debuffs, such like that. Well, I should say, be a good basis for buffs, and it actually the stats are decent enough that it could take a debuff or 2 and still stay standing. It might need a little fudging. I really didn't go too big into the numbers. I think this would be an issue if you double reinforced it, because now you are looking at a unit of 60 wounds with a 3-up save. That is a little much, yes. But this isn't even necessarily the one I wanted. This is just kind of, I was just updating it. What I would really like to see is them go a little bit more of elite, so now you're looking at a 5-man unit. So they have a 2-up save, which now looking back at, I should have kept that at 3, and then kept basically anything with a shield would get the 2-up. Still 4-inch move. Now you have a 9 bravery and 3 wounds a pop, so you're actually a little bit closer to a Gore Grunta at this point. Now, if you look though, you'll see no missile weapon profile, and then the cleaver the bayonet cleaver is the same profile, except for you get an extra attack. So your number of attacks are going down because you're in a 5-unit model. So you're having the unit, but only getting 1 extra attack, so you're getting less there. However, Standard Bearer. In the Battle Shock phase, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches and roll a d3. That unit counts as losing that many additional models. So there's a combo that I've already come up with further on. We'll go over it in a little bit, but for the Bull Centaurs, they have Terror. So basically your goal would be to try and get a unit pinned with Fireglaves and a Centaur, so now the unit can't do Inspiring Presence. And so if you're in the Battle Shock phase, you just go, okay, that unit there, roll a die, they lost 3 guys, or they lost 2 extra guys. Making those a little bit, making your opponent have to think a little bit more if they want to stay there or not. So Musician, I kept the same thing, just if you were to roll a 1 or a 2, it counts as 3. And again, just to make sure I'm clear, so this, and this are not real. This is just me making up stuff, seeing how they would kind of feel in 3rd edition, just to have some fun. Because we all know at this point, if you've been watching the channel at all, I like writing rules. If you're new here, hi, I like writing rules. And then again, I updated the Fireglade Specialist here. This is kind of where the shooting comes into play. If an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with Fireglade Cleaver is 6, that causes a mortal wound in addition to any damage it inflicts. So just kind of the normal. Now, in addition, in your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit within 12 inches and roll 2 die for each model in the unit. Each 5 up, that unit receives a mortal wound. So I kind of was thinking about, let's save a little bit of time, let's save a little bit of dice rolling here, and let's try and do something a little different. Now again, yes, none of these are obviously ready for tabletop. I'd have to be like, pick an enemy unit within line of sight, invisible, blah, 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 blah. Just, we're all friends here. Try and figure out the smart way to write the rules, and that's what I intended. So again, so now if you double reinforce this unit, that's 15 guys. Now you're rolling 30 dice, and so you're looking at like 6 mortal wounds. It's not a big deal too much, but now all of a sudden those foot heroes have to worry because this bypasses Lookout Sir. I think it's an interesting way to look at a ranged unit because there's no ranged profile, but there's a ranged special ability to let you do a little bit of mortals. Kind of the elite, for basically in my mind, the elite are relatively low damage, but a decent amount of splash mortals. So it's like you kind of get in, you get stuck in, and those mortals just keep grinding. Almost kind of like a little bit like Nurgle, almost, with the disease, except for it's kind of baked into the profile as opposed to relying on disease points. So moving along here, we have the Bull Centaur renders. So these are, again, these are the dwarves that have been mutated into centaurs. As you can see in the 2nd edition, first and 2nd edition rules, they actually have the Dwarven keyword. So these were monstrous beasts. So they had very special rules in fantasy. So they were move 7, pretty good for a dwarf, pretty bad for everything else. For weapon skill, their ballistic skill doesn't really matter because they don't have ranged weapons. So strength 4, meh. Tough 5, yay. Wounds 3, wow. Again, having a model back in fantasy with a higher wound unit than just 1, pretty big deal. Same thing with attacks. So these guys have an attack 2, that's pretty good. So, monstrous beasts. They get a couple special rules just for being monstrous beasts. This isn't like, oh, this is what Bull Centaurs get. No, this is monstrous beasts. So you get a stomp. So whenever all combats are done, everyone in the unit gets to attack with this, where you just auto-inflict a hit at the model strength. So if you have 3 guys in that can strike, your opponent has to save against 3 attacks. So normally you needed 5 models to count as a rank. Here, you just need 3 to count as a rank, and then normally supporting models do less attacks. This one goes up to 3, which is awesome because they have 2 attacks apiece. Now, as far as their rules, they have Contempt, where they are not subject to panic tests caused by friendly units which are destroyed or fail break tests within 6 inches of them. This is the army rule. I think I go over that later, but yeah, so basically in the game, normally if someone runs away, the other units have to go, what happened to them? Let's get out of here. These guys, they don't care. So they also have Fear, where your opponent has to take a leadership test before they attack, and if they fail, their weapon score is reduced to 1, which makes it almost impossible for them to attack you, and almost impossible for you to miss. This is amazing. Fear is so good. Now again, I'll leave this to the real fantasy pros, because I really didn't play that much fantasy. I mean, it's 10 games, 5 games, somewhere in that area. Scaly Skin 5-up gives a 5-up armor. They also have Heavy Armor, which provides a 5-up armor save. So I don't know if they have a 4-up save, or they just have 2 ways of having a 5-up armor. Either way, it's not great, but that's kind of what you expect in fantasy. Everything has like a 5 or 4, if they have a save. In first edition, these guys are actually pretty cool. So these guys were Gorgruntas. 7-inch move, 3-up save. 3-up save in first edition. Wow. 5 wounds. Wow. And then Bravery 6. Yeah, it's not. So they had their Dark Forged weapons, 3 attacks, 4s, 3s, 1 Ren, 2 damage. Again, we didn't really have Lookout Sir, or not Lookout Sir. We didn't have All Out Attack back then, so you were stuck with that 4. But again, 4 was a very common profile back then. And then, of course, they have their Crushing Hooves, 3 attacks apiece, 4s, no Ren, 1 damage. You're not going to do too much, but it's good to have the extra attacks. Now, whenever from their 1 rule, Trample and Gore, add 1 to charge rolls for this unit, so that's always good. In addition, this unit's Crushing Hooves have a damage characteristic of D3 instead of 1 the turn they charge. That's really good for first edition. Like, where basically everything that the first guys are lacking, these guys have in spades. But I never, like, the times I did see Chaos Dwarves on the battlefield, I really didn't see too many of these guys. I think it was more along the lines because the models were rare more than anything else. And we also didn't have 3D printing back in those days, kids. So I think I only made the 1. So I made the 1 because I had to, like, I would have to start making an actual army if I wanted to come up with a full second unit for both versions, the 10-man version and the 5-man version of the Battle Tome I have in my mind. I really didn't change too much. So for their Dark Forge weapon, 3 attacks, 3s, Ren 1, I took it down to 1 damage. For the Crushing Hooves, 3 attacks, 4s, 3s, no Ren 1 damage. And then for their Trample and Gore, roll 3 dice whenever charging and discard the lowest. Just get that average up a little bit. And then when this unit ends its charge within half an inch of a unit, roll a die on a 2+, deal 3 mortal wounds, so basic impact. Then I gave them a rule called Unstoppable. This unit can retreat and charge in the same turn. If it retreats, roll 2 dice, and on a 2+, pick 1 enemy unit within 1 inch and deal D3 mortal wounds. So now you're able to charge in, deal D3 mortal wounds, retreat, deal 3 mortal wounds, retreat back in, deal D3 mortal wounds. Now again, obviously, turn 1, charge in, turn 2, charge out, then back in. Aura of Hashut. Enemy units within 3 inches cannot issue or receive the Inspiring Presence command. And then Impatient Rage. Once per battle, you can choose to make this unit make a normal move in the hero phase. So just basically, like, just kind of get them up there. And that is in a hero phase. That was on purpose. everyone likes moving shenanigans. And then I made him elite. So this, I think, is there's a part of me that says it's a little too good, but other part, like, no. I mean, if you just put their points high enough, I think if you made this like a 280, 260, so you can't really spam them. Again, there's probably 3 guys in the unit. You're going to have enough where you're like, oh, I'll take maybe 2 units, and then they can reinforce the Chaos Dwarves. But there's not enough of them, or they're not good enough to go, I'll just take an all Centaur list. So, alright, so then we got into their army rules here. So, again, we said Contempt. That's where the Bull Centaurs don't have to worry about the panic tests. Relentless. Units entirely composed of models with this special rule. Do not pass into leadership whenever you're doing the march within 8 inches. And then the Resolute, which we covered all 3 of these. So, nothing too special. Other than that, forget what else they had. They had something else special, but it wasn't anything fantastic. I think they had like their gear, like everyone, because all the armies had their own special gear and everything, like normal. In 1st and 2nd edition, you had one thing: Fireball. If you cast a spell, which by the way I didn't really get to talk about. One thing that's really cool that because whenever Dwarfs came out, they had no mages, they had no wizards, and basically it was Dwarfs can't cast spells. That's all there is to it. Move on. They live in the mountain. They can't cast spells, and they like to drink. That's what you know about Dwarfs. Whenever the Chaos Dwarfs came out, and you had Dwarf wizards, it was revealed that it's not that Dwarfs can't be wizards; it's that they shouldn't be wizards, because as they cast spells, their bodies aren't made to handle the winds of magic. And so I think they actually use part of their life force to fuel their spells. And so what happens is from like their fingers and their toes, they start turning into stone. And so eventually demon smiths will just fully turn into stone, or be stone to the point where they can't cast spells anymore. So since they're Akshi, they have Fireball, which is 18 inches, 5 casting value 5. You pick one enemy unit of 1 model, suffers 1 wound. 2 to 9 suffer D3. 10 suffers D6. Not terrible for free. Better than your Arcane Bolt. And that's all they got. So now here's 4th plus. So these are the stuff that I came up with that's I wanted to go strong. I wanted to go real strong because it's never going to happen, so let's just have fun with it. So all Legion of Asgore, which I think Asgore is going to stay. I think if we do see them again, we'll keep it Legion of Asgore. I kind of like Oathbreakers a little bit better, but they already have the name written out, so I just went with it. All Legion of Asgore Dwarden units have a 5 ward. All successful ward saves deal 1 mortal wound to the unit that caused the wound. So, I thought I updated that to ward saves of 6, deal mortal wound, but I stand behind it. Again, like I said, you just have these profiles that are a little bit lower, that do a little bit less damage. Everything's like kind of 1. You splash in some mortal wounds here from the attack. You splash in a little bit of mortal wounds from the attack, and you're just constantly just grinding down your opponents through these mortal wounds. At no point in time are you getting like these big, like, boom, there's your make 40 saves. Like, that's just not this army in my mind. Corrupted Flames of Akshi. At the end of the combat phase, roll a die for each unit within 1 inch of a Legion of Asgore unit. If the result is under the current round number, that unit receives 1 mortal wound. If it is round 3 or later, a roll of 1 deals D3 mortal wounds instead. So again, much like the Lumineth with the Realm of Light, Sylvaneth in the realm of life and beasts. They're bringing that sense with them of where they're from. This last one, the Infernal Rails of Hashut, it's been on the screen long enough. You can pause it and read the whole thing. Essentially what it is, your first demon, Iron Demon war engine, is free and is essentially your army terrain. It's your terrain piece. And so you can take more, but this is the one that you get. And so the first one's free. And then you can choose any amount of war machines. I'd maybe put a limit on it. It doesn't matter. And those all start off the table. And then at the end of your movement phase, you can decide to put them anywhere on the battlefield outside of 9 of your enemy, within 6 inches of the table edge. And now you have you have to like stack them, not stack. You have to create a line, like a train. And then basically everything uses the Iron Demon War Engine, and the only penalty you would have is if the Iron Demon War Engine runs, the other things can still shoot, but they get a -1 to their hit rolls. So it's a little bit of a compromise, because if you have 2 war machines tied to the end of this and you have to run it somewhere, you're losing out on, what, a third of your artillery? Yeah. And then, of course, if they did want to go with the Laborer route, which, again, I could take or leave. If they do it, I would like a build without it. But Relentless Lash, any unit with the Laborer keyword can only receive the rally command when they are within 3 inches of an enemy unit. And these units rally on a 5+. Basically, you only get encouragement if you are doing what we want, and that is throwing yourselves to the slaughter. So again, like I said, I see so much potential for this army because chaos is getting kind of big, but it's something that we keep hearing about in the lore. We keep hearing about. We heard about them in, I forget which one of I think it was the Fireslayer's Battle Tome. They were even in the Orc War Clans whenever they were talking about the Hobgrots. Essentially, it sounds like Hobgrots are basically the descendants of Hobgoblins. And, which again, sorry lore people, I don't read that much lore. But, so they were in there. They, in Warcry with the Horns of Hashut, they did say that, like, look, these are the involuntary recruits of Chaos Dwarves, and wherever they show up, Chaos Dwarves are soon to follow. So we could easily see those in the unit or in the army, and we could see more of that. So, like I said, I don't know. I can't imagine. I just want to imagine what they would look like in the current stylings of their models. So despite how I feel about the current trend of rules writers, the current trend of the modelers has been phenomenal. Absolutely top notch. So who knows? We'll see. Like I said, I think if we are going to get a new army this edition, I do think it's going to be closer to it's probably going to be closer to the Umberneth, just because I have a feeling we're going to the Realm of Shadow, and that's where Malarian is. So, now again, with that being said, whenever KO came, we weren't in Shaman. Whenever, we weren't in Haish whenever Hish, whenever the Lumineth showed up. So I guess they don't have to be tied to it. It just seems more appropriate and apt. But we'll see. We'll see. I think if we're going to get new armies, I do think it is going to be Umberneth, and I do think that we would get Tyrion shortly thereafter, because actually I didn't get the most recent Lumineth Battle Tome, but the last one no. Doesn't matter. One of the books talks about how essentially, since Tyrion is blinded, he is perfect for going to the Realm of Shadow to fight, to face Malarian, and I would love to like get in on that and get models out of that fight. Especially considering that they talk about how Malarian is like kind of fused with his dragon. I just can't imagine like demonic dragon elves. That's I'm willing to I'm willing to entertain that thought. But again, if I had to choose, obviously Chaos Dwarfs. Obviously Chaos Dwarves. I want to build them. I want to paint them. I want to play them right now, and it's probably going to be 4, 5, 6 years until we see them. But with that, I think it's a little bit of a shorter episode because it's just me. So I do hope that you were still able to be somewhat entertained without the terrific musings of my partner. But with that being said, next month we're going to talk. We might go a little in depth on the Flesh Eater Courts because we didn't talk about them at all this month. I know we talked about them a little bit last month, where essentially it is. I was right; they're a little overpowered, but it's death. Every time death comes out, right away it's a little overpowered. Except Night Haunt, but they don't count. They're still working on them. So, all right, everybody. I hope you had a good New Year's. Hope you had a good Christmas. Hope you had, well, Thanksgiving's a little far away, but still, hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Everyone, I hope you are ratcheting up for LVO, and good luck to everyone that goes there, and we will see you next month. Thank you and goodbye.